Welcome to Gaming on a Budget. Today we bring you Epic PvP Fantasy. Now this box is going to look distinctly different from the retail version. This is from the Kickstarter, which we backed. But I'm pretty sure we got content that should be in the base game box out here, though it's possible something like the Dark Knight may have been some. Anyway, so, you know, contents may vary, blah, 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 but I'm pretty sure there wasn't any exclusives, so other than the box, you shouldn't see anything that's different. Now, in Epic PvP, we will be dueling to the death. For whatever reason, fantasy characters duel to the death. I don't know, maybe that goblin, like, pooped in my shoes or something. I don't know, whatever. As a Dark Knight, shoe pooping is absolutely intolerable. So now, we must fight to the death.
Yeah, but us paladins totally poop in shoes.
Okay, all that aside. So, we are going to do that by selecting either through choice or randomization, you know. Ooh, excuse me. Your call. First a race, and then a class. And mooshing them together like so to make a human Dark Knight or a goblin paladin, as it were. Or many other possible combinations. Your race and your class will provide you with a special ability of some kind, you know, that'll specify on the card tile, whatever you call it, what it does for you and when you can use it. You know, there are a few symbols in this, but they're all reasonably intuitive, you know, once you've looked at them. The yellow shield is related to defense stuff, you know, fairly intuitive. So, you know, no particular troubles following along there. The things to keep in mind are the green numbers, which represent your combined initiative, so 3 plus 3, or 2 plus 3, indicating that the goblin has a higher initiative, you know, and would go first where relevant. Your hit points, which you will use to build your life pool, which is just some of your cards you'll be using to represent your life. 5 in my case, 4 in the case of the goblin. And that's pretty much the gist of it for the way the characters work. Beyond that, you've got different kinds of cards. Things like, that's not a skill. Things like moves, the basic strike being the typical example. It has a cost of 1, it has a block value of 1, and an attack value of 1.
Now these numbers all vary depending on the card, even basic strikes.
So. For example, 5, 5, and 5 on this other basic strike. It is relevant though because there are a lot of cards that reference your basic strikes. You have a lot of them in your deck, both for your class and for your race, like so. I thought I had a skill card out, but apparently... there we go. Okay, and then there are skill cards, which have no cost and will specify when and how you use them. Some of them will state that they come into play as a permanent, in which case you'll just, you know, put them on your side of the board and keep them there to do what they do when they do it. But most of them will just go away. Then there's also other special cards which say might have multiple blocks or multiple attacks. But, you know, all referencing the same symbols, so, you know, shouldn't be any particular confusion there. The game technically breaks itself down into 7 phases, though for the most part they flow together and you're really only going to be paying attention to, you know, a handful actively. Let me grab the book here to make sure I get this in order. First you have the aggression phase. Aggression is a pool of cards that'll not only be cards you can eventually draw into your hand to use, but it represents how much power you have available to play your cards. You remember that cost I mentioned earlier? Well, it's aggression you'll be using to pay the cost. You won't actually be directly spending the cards unless, you know, an ability tells you to. You'll be counting how much you have available and spending up to that amount. So during the aggression phase, you're going to take the top 2 cards off your deck, add them to your aggression pile. That'll be your available aggression for the turn, unless in step 2, the draw phase, you decide to draw some cards. Cards will be drawn from the aggression pile during that phase. the card effects and such that tell you to draw a card will be from your actual draw deck, but during this draw phase, you'll be taking them from the aggression pile. So, being able to play a little less, but having more available is kind of the choice you're making. Then there's the play moves phase. Moves are anything that's not a skill. So if it has a cost on the top, it's a move. If it doesn't, it's a skill. But you'll also be playing a lot of skills in this phase too. Again, they say when you play them. Then you've got the assigned blocks phase, where if your opponent has played a card to attack you, when you first play a card, it'll come in as a defense. So if it's equal to or greater than the attacking number, you can block that attack. Anything unblocked, phase 5 is block. Phase 4 is assigned block. So, again, maybe not strictly necessary to break it down that much, but it works. So, phase 6 is take damage. If there had been another attack coming through that I wasn't able to block, I would take a point of damage from it. Unless the attack specifies otherwise, any unblocked attack does 1 point of damage. Then, in the end phase, the attacks will go away back to the person who played them, and the defenses will be rotated to become attacks. So every card or every move you play will be first defense and then attack. And you can, of course, play a move that you can't use as a defense, either because there's nothing left to block or because it's not high enough. That's completely legitimate, obviously, and it will then turn into attack later for your opponent to deal with. So those are the phases. We'll be playing back and forth like that, taking turns, and trying to beat the sweet wonky crap out of each other.
Woo.
So hopefully that wasn't too long-winded and your eyes haven't completely glazed over. But if they have, rub them out real quick and let's get over to the gameplay, which will be much more exciting.